Senior Monitor I had served the ex-hegemony for 40 years. In all that time, he had never seen anything breach the inner security perimeter. The detection grid covered 3 star systems. The web could sense a ship dropping out of faster-than-light travel from half a galaxy away. The quantum lattice watched everything always, without rest. Nothing got through. Nothing had gotten through for 12,000 cycles. This was not boasting. This was simple fact. So when I saw the blip on his screen, his first thought was that his equipment had failed. He ran a diagnostic. Everything was working perfectly. He checked the feed from adjacent stations. They showed the same thing. A ship already inside the perimeter, already past every defense they had built over thousands of years. I's 4 hearts began to beat out of rhythm. His chitin-covered fingers moved across the console, pulling up visual data. The image resolved slowly, piece by piece, and with each passing second, I felt his fear grow stronger. The ship was massive. It was not elegant like hegemony vessels which curved and flowed like living things. This ship was brutal, angular. It looked like someone had taken metal and fury and hammered them together without caring about beauty. Weapon arrays covered its hull like spines on a dangerous animal. Scorch marks and battle damage decorated its surface, but the ship flew steady and strong. It had been hurt many times. It had never been stopped. On the side of the hull I saw an emblem, a pale blue circle with shapes inside it, continents, oceans. Earth. The ship was human. I slammed his appendage down on the priority alert button so hard that he cracked the console. Within seconds, alarms were screaming across the entire defense network. Within minutes, every commander in the border fleet was awake and shouting. High Commander Eth appeared on I's screen, his compound eyes wide with what could only be panic. Report, what is happening? A human vessel, High Commander. Sovereign-class battleship based on the configuration. It is already inside the inner perimeter. That is impossible. I am looking at it, High Commander. Eth's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress. How did it get past our defenses? I do not know. What do you mean you do not know? You are the senior monitor. I wanted to explain that the detection grid had shown nothing. The web had sensed nothing. The quantum lattice had reported all clear. The human ship had simply appeared as if it had always been there, as if the laws of physics had decided to look the other way. But he did not say any of this. Instead, he said, I am attempting to determine that now, High Commander. More commanders were joining the channel. More voices were shouting. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Who had allowed this? How had this happened? Whose fault was this? No one was asking the more important question. What did the humans want? I pulled up everything the hegemony knew about human military vessels. The files were disturbingly thin. Humans had only been a spacefaring species for 300 years. They were young. They were small. They controlled maybe 200 star systems compared to the hegemony's 12,000. They should have been insignificant. But the reports told a different story. A human colony had once fought off an entire hegemony compliance fleet using weapons they had built from mining equipment and agricultural machines. They had won. A human exploration vessel had stumbled into a border conflict between the hegemony and another species. Instead of fleeing, the humans had rammed both sides until everyone agreed to stop fighting. When asked why they had done this, the human captain had reportedly said, "You were being annoying." Humans, the intelligence reports concluded, did not think like other species. They did not calculate risk and reward the way rational beings should. They made decisions based on something called principle and spite. They held grudges for generations. They formed attachments to strangers and would die for people they had never met. The hegemony's official assessment of humanity was 4 words long: avoid, do not provoke. And now a human battleship was sitting inside their most secure space, close enough to their capital world to spit on it. I checked the ship's classification again. Sovereign class. He searched the database for more information and felt his blood turn cold. Humanity had only built 12 sovereign-class battleships. Each one was a mobile fortress, carrying enough firepower to crack a small moon. Each one had ended wars by itself. The persistent negotiator, that was the name painted on this vessel's hull, had once held an entire star system against a fleet of 400 enemy ships for 6 days until reinforcements arrived. It had destroyed 87 of those ships. It had taken damage that would have killed any other vessel 10 times over. It was still flying. High Commander Eth was giving orders now. Every available warship was being mobilized. The hegemony had 8,000 vessels of the line. Surely they could destroy one human ship, no matter how fearsome. But I was not so sure. He had read the reports. He had seen what humans did when they were cornered. They did not surrender. They did not retreat. They found ways to win that no sane species would consider. And this ship had not come here by accident. It had passed through defenses that should have been impossible to breach. It had done so without being detected. It had chosen to reveal itself only when it was already in position. This was not an invasion. This was a message. I's console chimed. An incoming transmission. He opened the channel with trembling fingers. A human face appeared on his screen. Female, based on the reports he had studied. Her skin was brown, her hair was dark and pulled back tight, and her eyes held the kind of calm that came from having seen many battles and survived them all. "This is Captain of the United Earth Ship Persistent Negotiator," the human said. Her voice was steady and clear. "We are transmitting on all frequencies to ensure there is no misunderstanding." She paused. I realized he was holding his breath, which was difficult since his species had 6 lungs. "We come in peace," Captain said, and then she smiled, and I saw something in that smile that made all 4 of his hearts skip at once. "But we are prepared for the alternative." The transmission ended. I sat in silence for a long moment. Around him, the command center was chaos. Officers were shouting, consoles were beeping, commanders were demanding answers that no one had. But I was thinking about that smile. It had not been threatening exactly. It had been something worse. It had been confident. The humans knew something. They had come here for a reason, and whatever that reason was, I suspected that the hegemony was not going to like it. He began composing his report to the High Council. He had a feeling it was going to be a very long night. The ex-hegemony had ruled its corner of the galaxy for 15,000 years. It had conquered species, absorbed civilizations, and built an empire that stretched across 12,000 star systems. It had done all of this through 3 things: military power, careful planning, and most importantly, bureaucracy. The hegemony ran on paperwork. Every decision went through 17 levels of approval. Every action required documentation. Every failure required someone to blame. High Arbiter sat at the head of the emergency council table and watched his subordinates tear each other apart. "The breach occurred in Sector 7, Commander Eth insisted, pointing at the sector commander across the table. "Your detection stations failed to register the vessel." "My stations were functioning perfectly," Sector Commander Hex shot back. "The ship must have entered through Sector 6 and drifted into my territory." "Impossible. Sector 6's web has no gaps." "Then explain how a human battleship is currently sitting 2 light towers from our capital world." Let them argue. It was easier than admitting the truth. No one knew how the humans had done it. The detection grid had shown nothing. The web had sensed nothing. Every security system had reported normal operations right up until the moment the human ship had decided to announce itself. It was as if the humans had simply appeared out of empty space. The Intelligence Directorate's representative, a thin and nervous official named, cleared his throat. "If I may, High Arbiter, Our analysts did submit reports regarding human spatial folding capabilities 6 months ago. The table went quiet, turned his compound eyes toward the intelligence officer. Spatial folding. A theoretical faster-than-light method that bypasses normal space entirely. The humans have been rumored to be developing it for decades. We submitted warnings that if successful, it would render most conventional defenses obsolete. His voice grew smaller. The reports were filed under theoretical concerns and marked for review in the next budget cycle. "You are telling me," said slowly, "that we knew the humans might be able to bypass our defenses, and we did nothing." "We filed the appropriate paperwork, High Arbiter." Wanted to reach across the table and strangle the intelligence officer. Instead, he took a deep breath and forced himself to remain calm. Panic would not solve this problem. Only careful, methodical action would. "What forces do we have available?" he asked. Commander Eth pulled up a display. "We are mobilizing the entire home fleet, 8,000 vessels of the line plus support craft. We can have them in position within 6 hours. And the human ship? It has made no hostile moves. It is simply sitting there." "Sitting there." "Yes, High Arbiter. Our analysts believe it may be waiting for something." Did not like that answer. Humans did not wait. Every report the hegemony had on human behavior suggested they were impulsive, aggressive, and prone to acting before thinking. A human ship that was waiting meant a human ship that had a plan. "What do we know about this vessel?" asked. A junior analyst stood and began reading from her voice trembled slightly. "The UES Persistent Negotiator is a sovereign-class battleship, one of only 12 in the human fleet. It has been in service for 47 Earth years. In that time, it has participated in 23 major engagements and has never been defeated." "Never?" "No, High Arbiter. It has been damaged, sometimes severely, but it has never been destroyed or captured. Human engineers have rebuilt it 7 times. The current vessel shares perhaps 30% of its original components, but the humans consider it the same ship." The analyst paused. "Humans have a concept called ship's soul. They believe that a vessel's identity persists even when its physical form is replaced. The persistent negotiator has, according to human records, earned its name many times over." Rubbed his mandibles together, a sign of deep thought. "And its captain, this decorated veteran, 42 Earth years old, has commanded the persistent negotiator for 11 years, known for—" The analyst hesitated. "Known for what?" "Known for making impossible situations possible, High Arbiter. Human media calls her the diplomat who brings guns. She has resolved 17 interstellar disputes during her career, 14 through negotiation, 3 through overwhelming force." The council chamber was silent, looked at the faces around the table and saw the same fear he felt reflected back at him. The hegemony had 8,000 ships. The humans had one. But that one ship had a captain who had never lost, and it had arrived through defenses that should have been impenetrable. "What do they want?" asked. It was the question that mattered most, and no one had answered it yet. The intelligence officer raised a trembling appendage. "High Arbiter, I may have discovered something relevant." "Speak." "I searched our diplomatic archives for any recent contact with human authorities. 6 months ago, the human government submitted a formal request for a high-level meeting with the Hegemony Council." Felt a cold sensation spread through his thorax. A meeting about what? The request did not specify. It stated only that the matter was of critical importance to regional security, and that the humans wished to discuss mutual cooperation against a shared threat. And what happened to this request? Looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. It was High Arbiter. The diplomatic office determined that the humans had no standing to request such a meeting. The request was filed and a standard rejection was sent. The silence in the chamber was absolute. We rejected their request, said quietly, and they decided to show up anyway. It would appear so, High Arbiter. Thought about the human captain's message. We come in peace, but we are prepared for the alternative. He thought about a species that would fly a single battleship into the heart of an empire that had rejected their diplomatic overtures. He thought about what kind of people would do such a thing. Either the humans were insane, or they had something so important to say that they were willing to risk war to say it. Was not sure which possibility frightened him more. Cancel the attack order, he said. Commander Eth's mandibles dropped open. High Arbiter. I said cancel it, we are going to talk to them. But they violated our space, they bypassed our defenses, They came to talk, Commander. They sent a diplomatic request, we rejected it and they came anyway. If they wanted to attack us, they would have done so already. They have had hours to strike, and instead they are sitting there, waiting. Stood, his old joints protesting the movement. Prepare a diplomatic vessel. I want our best negotiators ready within the hour. We are going to find out what the humans want. And if we do not like the answer, thought but did not say, then we can discuss alternatives. He had a feeling the humans would understand that logic perfectly. Captain had not slept in 36 hours. Her eyes were tired and her muscles ached, but her mind was sharp. It had to be. One wrong word in the next few hours could start a war that would kill billions. She stood in her quarters aboard the persistent negotiator, looking at herself in the mirror. Her dress uniform was crisp and clean, the medals on her chest polished until they shone. She looked like exactly what she was, a soldier who had come to talk. Her first officer, Commander James, appeared in the doorway. Captain, the hegemony delegation is approaching. They'll dock with the neutral station in 20 minutes. How many? 3 diplomats, 17 armed guards, and something our sensors can't quite identify. Could be a psionic of some kind. Nodded. The X were known to use psionics in negotiations. Truth readers, they called them. Beings who could sense lies and hidden intentions. The hegemony thought this gave them an advantage. They were about to learn otherwise. What are we bringing? Asked. Picked up a bottle from her desk. The label read Kentucky Bourbon, aged 25 years. It had cost her 3 months' salary. Just us and this. Raised an eyebrow, that's it. That's it, we're not here to threaten them, James. We're here to make them understand. 20 minutes later, walked into the meeting chamber aboard the neutral station. The room was stark and simple, designed by neither species, a compromise that satisfied no one. A long table divided the space, with chairs on each side suited to different body types. The ex-delegation was already there. The 3 diplomats sat in rigid formation, their bodies motionless, their compound eyes tracking every movement. Behind them, the armed guards clutched weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. And in the corner, a smaller X sat with its eyes closed, antennae twitching slightly. The truth reader walked to her side of the table and sat down. Commander stood behind her, hands clasped behind his back. She placed the bourbon bottle on the table. The lead diplomat, an older X whose chitin had faded to a pale gray, spoke first. I am senior diplomat Ev. I have served the hegemony for 200 years. In all that time, I have never experienced anything like this. Like what? Asked. A species that ignores a diplomatic rejection and simply arrives anyway. A ship that bypasses defenses we believe to be impenetrable. A captain who brings alcohol to a negotiation. Ev's mandibles clicked. You are either very brave or very foolish, Captain. Possibly both. Opened the bourbon and poured 3 glasses. She pushed 2 across the table toward the diplomats. In human culture, sharing a drink is a sign of good faith. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to listen. Ev looked at the glass with obvious suspicion. Our species cannot safely consume ethanol. I know, it's the gesture that matters. There was a long pause. Then slowly, Eth reached out and touched the glass with one appendage. He did not drink, but he held it. "Very well, Captain, we are listening. Why have you come here?" Took a sip of her own bourbon. It burned going down, warm and smooth. "I'm here to talk about The reaction was immediate. All three diplomats went rigid. The guards behind them shifted, their weapons rising slightly. Even the truth reader in the corner opened its eyes, antenna standing straight up. "I do not know what you mean," Eth said. Looked at the truth reader. "Is he telling the truth?" The truth reader flinched. It had not expected to be addressed directly. After a moment it shook its head. "He is not being fully honest, Captain." Eth turned to glare at the truth reader, then looked back at. His composure was cracking. "How do you know about We've known for decades. We've been watching the edges of your space, diplomat. We've seen the battles you don't report. We've counted the ships that don't come home. We've tracked the systems you've quietly evacuated and the colonies you've abandoned." Leaned forward. "The swarm has been pushing into your territory for 300 years. You're losing. Slowly, but you're losing. And you haven't told anyone." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush stone. Eth's voice was barely a whisper. "This information is classified at the highest level. If word spread that the hegemony was vulnerable, your empire would face challenges from every rival you've ever made. I understand." His voice was gentle now, not accusing. "That's why you've kept it secret. That's why you've been fighting alone, dying alone, losing alone. Pride is a powerful thing, diplomat. It can make you do stupid things." "And what would you have us do?" Eth asked. "Admit weakness to the galaxy. Invite every enemy we have ever made to attack while we are distracted." "No, I'd have you accept help from someone who doesn't want to destroy you." Eth's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Why? Why would humans help us? We have no treaties, no trade agreements. We rejected your diplomatic request. We have never been anything but hostile to your species." Smiled. It was a sad smile full of old memories. "Diplomat, let me tell you something about humans. We're not good at a lot of things. We're not the species in the galaxy or the strongest or the most advanced. We fight among ourselves constantly. We hold grudges for generations. We make the same mistakes over and over again." She paused to take another sip of bourbon. "But there's one thing we're very good at. We don't like bullies. And they, from everything we've seen, are the biggest bullies this galaxy has ever produced. They don't negotiate. They don't compromise. They just consume. They eat worlds and move on to the next one." Stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "In 20 years, maybe 30, they will push through your defenses completely. They'll reach populated space. They'll start consuming worlds that have names, worlds with billions of people on them. And it won't stop with your empire. They'll keep going until there's nothing left." She turned back to face the diplomats. "We're not asking for payment. We're not asking for territory or tribute or political concessions. We're offering to help because the alternative is watching the galaxy burn." Eth was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was different. The formal diplomatic tone was gone, replaced by something raw and honest. "For 200 years, I have negotiated on behalf of the hegemony. I have made deals and broken them. I have lied and manipulated and threatened. It is what diplomats do." He looked at with something like wonder in his compound eyes. "I do not know how to respond to someone who simply offers help." Walked back to the table and picked up her glass. "That's the human way, diplomat. We show up, we help, and then we argue about who's buying the next round of drinks." She raised her glass in a toast. After a moment, Eth lifted his glass as well. He still could not drink it, but he held it up to meet hers. "To unexpected allies," said. "To unexpected allies," Eth repeated. And for the first time in 300 years, the hegemony was no longer fighting alone. The war room aboard the persistent negotiator was not built for comfort. It was built for planning how to kill things, and it did that job very well. Captain stood at the central holographic display, surrounded by ex-diplomats, hegemony military commanders, and her own senior staff. The display showed a map of the galaxy, with hegemony space marked in blue and a spreading red stain along its far border. The red was the swarm. 300 years ago, the swarm first made contact with hegemony forces along the outer rim, said, manipulating the display. Initial engagements were indecisive. The hegemony won some battles, lost others. You believed you could contain them. Senior diplomat Eth nodded slowly. We underestimated them. We thought they were just another aggressive species, one that could be defeated through superior firepower and strategic patience. But they weren't. Zoomed the display in on the border region. They don't think like other species. They don't want territory. They don't want resources. They don't want power or influence or respect. They want one thing: to consume. Every world they take becomes fuel for more ships, more soldiers, more expansion. They are a hunger-given form. High Arbiter, who had joined the meeting via holographic link from X-Prime, spoke up. We have thrown everything we have at them. Fleets, armies, weapons that could crack planets. Nothing stops them for long. We kill millions and millions more take their place. Because you've been fighting alone, pulled up a new display. They adapt to single opponents. They study your tactics, your weapons, your psychology. They learn your weaknesses and exploit them. But they've never faced a coalition. They've never faced multiple species working together, bringing different strategies and different technologies. Commander Eth, the hegemony's military chief, made a skeptical sound. And you believe humans can make the difference. You are a young species. You have only a fraction of our military strength. Smiled, it was not a friendly smile. Commander, do you know why humans have survived every war we've ever fought? Lucky. Stubbornness. She pulled up historical data. In the early days of our spacefaring era, we encountered a species called They were older than us, more advanced, and they decided humanity would make excellent slaves. They invaded 3 of our colonies. The display showed grainy footage of burning cities and alien war machines. We fought back with mining lasers and converted cargo ships. We strapped explosives to asteroids and dropped them on their invasion fleets. We did things that no sane species would consider. His voice was quiet but hard. The war lasted 8 years. At the end of it, there was a radioactive wasteland, and humanity was still standing. The ex-officers exchanged glances. Humans don't surrender, continued. We don't give up. When someone pushes us, we push back harder. When someone hurts us, we make sure they regret it. It's not always smart. It's not always logical, but it's who we are. She turned to face holographic image directly. High Arbiter, the hegemony has been fighting with strategy and patience. You've been trying to outlast them, to contain them, to manage the threat. That approach has failed. Then what do you suggest? We go on the offensive. We stop defending and start attacking. We hit them where they live, where they breed, where they're vulnerable. Eyes were fierce now. We don't manage this threat, we end it. Eth shook his head. You speak of impossible things. The swarm controls hundreds of systems now. Their numbers are beyond counting. Their numbers don't matter if we destroy their ability to reproduce. Pulled up a schematic. Hive worlds are the key. Each one produces billions of soldiers. Take out the hive worlds and the swarm loses its ability to replace losses. We wouldn't need to kill every. We just need to kill faster than they can breed. And you believe this is possible. Pressed a control. 12 points of light appeared on the galaxy map, scattered across hegemony space. Those are the current positions of all 12 Sovereign-class battleships in the human fleet. Every single one is already in transit to this region. They'll arrive within 6 months. The room went silent. Eth spoke first. You mobilized your entire heavy fleet before we even agreed to meet. We mobilized them 6 months ago when you rejected our diplomatic request. We knew you'd say no. We came anyway. Shrugged. Humans aren't good at taking no for an answer. His holographic form flickered as he leaned forward. "Captain, you speak as if this alliance is already decided. We have not agreed to anything." "No, you haven't, but you will." His voice was calm, certain. "Because you've spent 300 years fighting alone and you're losing. Because every year the swarm takes more of your territory and kills more of your people. Because you've tried everything else and nothing has worked." She walked around the display table, approaching his hologram. "High Arbiter, I'm not asking you to trust us. Trust takes time and we don't have time. I'm asking you to let us help. Let us fight beside you. Let us show you what humans can do when we have something worth fighting for." "And what do humans consider worth fighting for?" asked. Thought about the question. She thought about Earth, hanging blue and beautiful in the darkness of space. She thought about the colonies, each one filled with people who had left everything behind to build something new. She thought about all the species humanity had met in its short time among the stars, some friendly, some hostile, all of them part of a galaxy that was bigger and stranger than anything humans had imagined. "Everything," she said finally. "Humans fight for everything, our homes, our families, our friends, strangers we've never met, ideas we believe in, futures we'll never see." She met his gaze. "The hegemony rejected our request for a meeting. You treated us like we didn't matter. And we came anyway because they don't care about diplomatic protocols. They'll eat your worlds and then they'll eat ours, and in the end it won't matter who was rude to whom." Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different. The formality was gone, replaced by something tired and honest. "For 300 years, I have carried the secret of the. I have watched my people die in battles that are never reported, fighting an enemy that officially does not exist. I have done this because I believe the hegemony must appear strong, must never show weakness." He looked with something that might have been respect. "You have shown me that there is another kind of strength, the strength to ask for help, the strength to admit that you cannot win alone." He straightened, his old body taking on new energy. "Captain, the ex-hegemony accepts your offer of alliance." Felt something loosen in her chest. She had not realized how tense she had been. "Then let's get to work," she said. "We have a galaxy to save." Across the war room, human and ex-officers began talking, planning, arguing. It was messy and chaotic, and nothing like the smooth, diplomatic negotiations the hegemony was used to. It was beautiful. Eth moved to stand beside, watching the controlled chaos. "Captain, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "When you sent that diplomatic request 6 months ago, and we rejected it, did you really believe we would change our minds?" Smiled. "Diplomat, I've learned something in my years of service. The species that refuse to ask for help are usually the ones who need it most. You didn't want to meet with us because you were afraid of looking weak, afraid of admitting you couldn't handle the problem alone." She looked at him. "That's exactly why we had to come." Eth considered this. "Humans are a very strange species. We get that a lot." "I believe," Eth said slowly, "that the galaxy is fortunate to have you." It was thought the nicest thing a X had ever said to a human. It was a good start. 6 months later, the galaxy had changed. High Arbiter stood on the bridge of his command vessel, watching through the viewport as human and X ships moved in formation. 6 months ago, such a sight would have been unthinkable. Two species that had never been allies, had never trusted each other, now flew wing to wing toward the greatest battle in hegemony history. The hive world of Prime hung in space before them, a massive sphere of organic matter and metal, pulsing with the life of billions of swarm soldiers. It was one of the largest hive worlds in space, responsible for producing an estimated 10 million soldiers per cycle. Today it would die. "All ships report ready, High Arbiter," Commander Eth announced. "The human fleet is in position." Looked at the tactical display. The combined fleet numbered over 2,000 vessels. 800 were hegemony ships, veterans of 3 centuries of secret war. The rest were human. The humans had brought everything. The 12 Sovereign-class battleships formed the core of the assault force, their massive hulls bristling with weapons that made hegemony engineers weep with envy. Around them swarmed carriers, cruisers, destroyers, support ships, and most surprisingly, civilian vessels that had been converted for war. When I'd asked Captain about the civilian ships, she had laughed. "Volunteers," she had said. "People who heard about the war and decided to help. We tried to tell them to stay home. They didn't listen." Humans had learned, were very bad at listening. "High Arbiter, we are receiving a transmission from the persistent negotiator." Nodded and Captain's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired. Everyone looked tired these days, but her eyes were sharp and her voice was steady. "High Arbiter, my scouts report the Hive World's defenses are activating. They know we're here." Expected, the swarm has never failed to detect an incoming attack. "Then let's give them something to think about," smiled grimly. "All human vessels are ready, on your command." Felt the weight of the moment. For 300 years the hegemony had fought defensive battles, trying to hold ground, trying to slow the swarm's advance. Today, for the first time, they were attacking. And they were not alone. "All vessel," said, his voice carrying across the fleet, "begin the assault." The battle for Prime began with fire. Human ships surged forward, their weapons blazing. The Sovereign-class battleships led the charge, their main guns tearing through defensive platforms like they were made of paper. Behind them, hegemony cruisers laid down supporting fire, their plasma cannons finding targets with precision born of centuries of experience. They responded with swarm tactics as they always did. Thousands of small attack craft poured from the Hive World's surface, darkening space with their numbers. Each one was expendable. Each one was driven by a single purpose: kill the invaders. Against most enemies, the swarm would have been overwhelming. Against humanity, it found something unexpected. The human ships did not try to dodge or evade. They met the swarm head-on, their point defense systems filling space with a web of lethal fire. Attack craft died by the hundreds, then by the thousands, and the humans kept coming. Watched a human destroyer take hit after hit, its hull torn open, atmosphere venting into space. Instead of retreating, the destroyer accelerated toward a cluster of capital ships. Its final transmission was 2 words: "For Earth." The explosion took out 3 enemy vessels. "Humans," Commander Eth said quietly, "are insane." "Yes," agreed, "it is their greatest strength." The battle raged for 18 hours. Had fought them many times. He had seen them adapt to hegemony tactics, learn from their mistakes, become harder to kill with each engagement. He had never seen them falter. Until now. The combined fleet fought with a coordination they had never faced. When hegemony ships fell back to recharge, human vessels pushed forward. When human formations began to buckle, X-cruisers moved to support them. Neither species fought like the other, and that was the point. They could not adapt to 2 different enemies at once. Their hive mind, so effective against single opponents, struggled to process the conflicting tactical data. Their responses became slower, less coordinated. And still the humans came. Captain led the persistent negotiator into the heart of the defense, her ship taking damage that would have destroyed any hegemony vessel. The humans did not seem to notice. They patched holes with emergency sealant, rerouted power around damaged systems, and kept fighting. "All vessels focus fire on the Hive World's core," ordered, her voice calm despite the chaos around her. "We end this now." The combined fleet concentrated its firepower on a single point. Beam weapons and missiles and kinetic projectiles converged on the Hive World's central mass, the place where the queens lived and bred. The explosion was visible from light years away. Prime died in a flash of light and fire. 10 billion perished in an instant. The attack craft still in space went still, their connection to the hive mind severed. easy targets. When it was over, looked at the tactical display. The combined fleet had lost 400 vessels. The humans had lost more than half their forces. And they were already planning the next attack. Captain appeared on his screen again. Her face was streaked with sweat and blood from a cut on her forehead, but she was smiling. High Arbiter, Prime is destroyed. Initial estimates suggest we've eliminated 15% of the swarm's total reproductive capacity. 15% repeated, in a single battle. It's a start. There are 6 more major hive worlds within striking distance. If we move fast, we can hit them before the swarm can reorganize. Looked at the debris field that had once been a hive world. 15%. In 300 years of war, the hegemony had never achieved such a victory. And the humans wanted to do it again, and again, and again. Captain said, on behalf of the ex-hegemony and all its citizens, thank you. Shook her head. Don't thank us yet, Arbiter. We've got a long way to go, but today we proved something important. What is that? That they can be beaten, that the swarm isn't unstoppable, that if we fight together we can win. She looked directly at him. Today they learned a new word, a word they've never needed before. What word? Retreat. Thought about that. In 3 centuries of war they had never retreated from anything. They advanced or they died. There was no other option for them. Until now. Across the battlefield, the surviving forces were pulling back. Not attacking, not regrouping, but fleeing. Running from the combined fleet like prey running from predators. It was, realized, the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Far away, in the depths of space, the swarm queens huddled in their hive worlds and shared information through the vast network that connected all. They processed the data from Prime. They analyzed the tactics of their enemies. They searched their collective memory for ways to counter this new threat. And they found nothing. The new enemy was unpredictable. They did not fight for territory or resources. They did not retreat when damaged. They did not respond to fear or pain or loss in rational ways. They simply kept coming, kept fighting, kept destroying. The queens had a word for such beings. It was an old word, from a time before the swarm had conquered everything in its path. A word for things that could not be consumed. A word for creatures that made the swarm feel something it had never felt before. Fear. The word spread through the hive mind, passed from queen to queen, until every in the galaxy knew it. They whispered it to themselves in the darkness of their hive worlds. They trembled when they heard it. Human. The galaxy was changing. The swarm was retreating. And humanity, that young and strange and impossible species, had done what no one else could. They had given the galaxy hope. Captain stood on the bridge of the persistent negotiator, watching the stars. Her ship was battered but it was still flying. It would always be flying. Behind her, human and ex-officers worked side by side, planning the next battle, the next victory, the next step toward a future where there were nothing but a memory. Captain, Commander said, approaching her, the High Arbiter wants to know if we need time to repair before the next engagement. Smiled, tell him we'll be ready in 6 hours. 6 hours, Captain, we have hull breaches on 7 decks. Then we'll patch them in 5 hours and use the extra time for coffee. She turned to face her first officer. James, we came here to do a job. The job isn't done, so we keep working until it is. Nodded slowly. You know, Captain, most species would consider this insane. Most species aren't human. She looked back at the stars, at the debris field of Prime, at the combined fleet moving into formation for the next mission. Somewhere out there, they were learning what it meant to be afraid. Good thought, now they know how everyone else feels. She straightened her uniform, wiped the blood from her forehead and prepared for war. There was work to do. There was always work to do.